Let's use Vue build a to-do app. First, let me show the demo of this to-do app. Here is a home page. Welcome to the world's best to-do app. And we can click this link to do. It will go to the to-do app. And we add two dummy data for this to-do app, hello and world. Here we got two buttons, and the first button will show the status of this to-do item. If this item is uncompleted, it will show you uncompleted. And if this item is completed, it will show you completed. It will get a line through this item. And we can click this button. Then it will complete this item. And we also can click again. It will uncomplete this item. And there is another button. We can click this button to remove the to-do item. And when there is no to-do, it will show us no to-dos. Here we can add a new to-do. If there is no content, we can't click this button. Let's try to type some drink water. And we can click this add button to add a new to-do. And we can click this drink water item to go to the details of this to-do item. It will show the created time and content drink water and status false. We can click this, go back to the to-do app, and we also can click this, go back to the home page. This is a demo for this to-do app. Let's create a new folder in our desktop. Let's give it a name projects. And let's open a new terminal. In terminal, let's type a cd and drag this folder into this terminal. We will change the directory to this projects folder. Let's press enter. In this folder, let's run cargo new. Let's give it a name to do to generate a new cargo project. Press enter. Let's close this terminal window. Let's open this projects folder. You can see it will generate a new folder to do. Let's drag this folder to Visual Studio Code. Let's add some dependencies to our project. In cargo.toml file, let's add a view and a websys and a view router. Last is chrono. We will use this chrono to format the time. In our project folder, let's create a new file. Give it a name index.html. In this HTML file, let's press exclamation marker to generate a default HTML. In its title, let's change it to do app. We will use Bootstrap for our CSS style. So let's go to the Bootstrap address is getbootstrap.com. And here let's click this read the docs. Let's click this download. Here let's copy this. Click this copy. In this header, we will paste this link here. And let's change this script to this body. We also need a separate style CSS file. So in project folder, let's create a style.css file. Let's link this CSS file to our HTML file. So we will create a new link CSS. And rel we will change it to CSS. Then we will add an attribute to this link. Give it a date trunk. Let's go to the main.rs file. Let's create a new function component. Give it a name app. Returning type is HTML. Import from Vue. In function body, let's return HTML macro. In this macro, let's create a h1 element. Let's render content hello world in this h1 element. Let's close this h1 tag. Here, let's add an attribute function component. Let's give it a name app. This app is uppercase A. Here should be parentheses, not angle brackets. In main function, let's render this app component. So Vue render. Let's add this app component to this render. So we use Turbofish syntax app to specify this app component. Then new function render. In terminal, let's run trunk serve to serve our application. Press enter. Let's copy this address And let's go to the web browser. When we visit this address, it will show the hello world. It means our web application works fine. In src folder, let's create a new folder. Give it a name components. So we will put each component in a separate files, and we will put separate files in its components folder. In this folder, let's create a mode.rs file. So we will use this to specify this components as a module. So let's add this components module to our project. In main.rs file, let's add a mode components. In this components folder, let's create a new file, home.rs. We will, in this home.rs file, create a home component. In this mode.rs file, let's add a pub mode home. So we will add this home as a module to this components module. We added the pub keyword, so we can use this home in main.rs file. In home.rs file, let's create a function component. We will add a pub keyword to make it public. F1, give the name home. Returning type is HTML. We'll import this HTML from Vue, so let's use Vue prelude asterisk to import from this Vue. And this function component will return HTML macro. So HTML. In this HTML macro, let's create a h1 element. Let's just render content home. Let's close this h1. Let's add attribute function component. Let's give it a name home. Let's create a second component. Let's give it a name todos.rs. And let's also add this file to this module. So we will, in this mode.rs file, add a pub mode todos. In this todos, let's copy this. Let's create a component. We will change its name to todos. And here, this function name, we also change it to todos. Here, let's content change it to todos. Let's create a third component. Give the name single todo.rs. Let's add this file to our module. So in this mode.rs file, pub mode single todo. In this single todo file, let's also create a component. Let's change this function name to single todo. And the component name, let's change it to single todo. Here, content single todo. Let's create a last component. Give it a name not found.rs. Let's add this not found file to our module. So pub mode not found. Let's also pass this and change this function name to not found. Component name not found. Content not found. Let's go back to main.rs file. Let's use Vue router to create routers to render different components. So let's define an enum type router. We will make this enum type to be public, so we add the pub keyword. So later we can use this router enum in different files. Enum, give the name router. Let's add an attribute on this enum type. Derive routable partial equal and colon. Let's add a first router. Let's add an attribute on this router. Give it a pass at slash. And this router will be the home router. So we give it a variant name home. Let's add a second router at pass slash todos. Variant todos. Third router at pass slash todo. We will make this router to be a dynamic router, so we will add a colon ID. So this ID will be a variable, can store the dynamic value. Variant, give it a name single todo. And we will add a type annotation for this ID, give it a useId type. Let's add a last router. It will be a not found router. So not found. And also attribute a pass at slash asterisk variant name not found. Here we don't need to import this not found components for now. Let's create a switch function. F1 switch. Let's add a parameter for this function. Give it a name roots. Type is this enum root type. Returning type is HTML. We will create a match expression to match its roots. So first root is root home. Then we will return HTML macro and put the home component in this HTML macro. So home. And we need to import this home component from this component's home. Then let's add a second root to-dos. We will also put this to-dos component in HTML. So to-dos. And we need to import this to-dos from components to-dos. Third component is single to-do. HTML single to-do. Let's import a single to-do from components. Last router is root not found. HTML not found. Let's also import this not found component from components not found. In this app component, let's add a browser router element from view router. And let's close this browser router. And we will import this from view router. So here, browser router. In this browser router element, let's create another element switch. We will give it a concrete type. This root type we created the enum type. And this switch we also will import from this view router. So switch. And we will add an attribute to this switch element render equal to switch. This switch function is a function we created here. Let's pass this ID as a props to this single to-do. So let's create a struct type. We will make this struct type to be public. So pub struct, give it a name single to-do props. Let's add one field to this ID. Give it a type useSize. Let's add attribute derive partial equal properties and colon. In this switch function, in this single to do, let's add attribute ID equal to this ID. Let's go to the single to do component. Let's get this ID from props. In this single to do component, let's add a parameter props. Type will be ref single to do props. This structure we created here. And let's render this ID from this props. So here, props.id. Let's go to the web browser. So you can see first it will render the home page. So let's go to the path to-dos. It will render to-dos. And let's go to some random paths like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It will show the not found component. Then let's go to the to do and a single to do component. That's to do /1. It will render single to do ID is 1. Let's change this ID to be 2. Let's press enter again. It will render single to do ID is 2. Let's first go to finish the home component. In this HTML macro, let's add a fragment, and let's close this fragment as a root element. Then let's add a dev element. Let's add a class. Let's give it a class container. This container is from Bootstrap. Let's close this dev. In this dev, let's add another dev element. Dev, let's give it a class row. Justify content center and align items center. This class name all from the Bootstrap, so it will center the items in this dev element. So let's close this dev. In this dev, let's add another dev. Let's add a class colon 8. So it will decide this dev element width. Let's close this dev. In this dev, let's add a h1 element. Let's render content welcome to the world best. Let's add a link. We will import this link from view router. So use view router prelude double colon asterisk to root. We will import this root from main.s, this root enum. So use create root to root. We will click this link, go to the to-dos. Let's close this link. In this link, let's add a to-do. Let's close this link. And we need to specify the concrete type for this link. So its type is root. Also close this link here, link. We need to also specify the root. Let's finish this h1 element. App. Let's close this h1. Here, create, not create. So let's go to the web browser. Here, let's go to the home page. You can see it will show us welcome to the world best to-do app. When we click this, it will go to the to-dos. Let's go back. But you can see this is not in the center of our screen. So let's add a class to this. So in style.css, we will create a class, give it a name for height. Give it a height 100 VH. In this container, let's add this class name for height. And also the first div in this container, let's add h100. So it means this div will be 100% of this container's height. Let's go back to the web browser. So this time you can see it's welcome to the world best to-do app will be in the center of the screen. And let's copy this. Let's go to the not found component. And let's paste here. And let's import this link. Use view router prelude asterisk, and we also need to import this root use create root, and let's change this to (404) vertical bar not found. Let's also add a link. Let's give it a concrete type root 2. We will go to the home page, click this link. So root home. Let's render content. Go home. Let's close this link and also concrete type root. Here forward slash. Let's change this class colon to 4. Let's go to the web browser. So let's go to some random page like a /a. So you can see it will go to the 404 not found page, and here is a link. We can click this, go back to home page. In main.rs file, let's create a struct type for the to-do item. We will make this struct to be public. Struct. Give the name to-do item. Let's add a first field. Give the name ID. Type use size. Second field. Give the name content. Type string. Third field. Give the name completed. Type give it a bool. Last field. Give the name created item. Type give it a string. And let's add an attribute. Derive partial equal colon. Later we will use state hook to manage to-do item. Let's create another struct. Give it a name pub struct to-do list. We will use this to-do list to store the to-do items. So let's add one field list, and the type will be a vector and store the to-do item. Also, we will add the attribute derive partial equal and colon. In app component, let's create a variable light. Give the name to-do list state equal to. We will call use state hook. And let's pass the initial state. In this initial state, let's create some dummy data for this to-do list. So to-do list and list like let's add a to-do item ID, give it a 0. Content, let's give it a string from. Add some content like a drink water. Completed, let's give it a boolean value false. Created, let's create a function to get the current time. So in src folder, let's create a new file. Give it a name utl.rs. Let's add this file to our project as module. So in main.rs file, let's add mode utl. In this utl.rs file, let's create a public function. Give the name get current time. Returning value is a string. We will use chrono create to get the current time and the format time. So let's import chrono prelude asterisk. First, let's create a variable. Give the name now equal to. We will call UTC now function to get the current UTC time. Then let's create a variable. Give the name t equal to. We will call now the format method. We will pass a format string into this format method to format this now time. percent uppercase y, this will be the placeholder for the year. Percent lowercase m, this will be for the month. Percent lowercase d, this will for the day. White space. Percent uppercase h, this will be the hour. Colon. Percent uppercase m, this will be the minute. Colon. Percent uppercase s, this will for the second. Then let's call toString to convert this to a string. Last, let's return this t. So in this created at field, let's call this get current time function to get the created time. Let's add a second to-do item. To-do item ID, give it 1. Content, give it a string from take a walk. Complete, give it a true. Created, give it a get a current time. Let's pass this to-do list state into the context, so we can share and manage this state in different components. In this app component, let's add a context provider. We will import this from Vue. So here, let's import a context provider. And we will give this context provider a concrete type. You can see this data type is use data handle and to-do list. So we will give this type to this context provider. And we will import this use data handle. Here, let's import this use data handle from Vue. So use data handle. Here, let's give it a concrete type. Use data handle and to-do list. Let's close this use state handle. Let's add an attribute to this context provider. Context equal to do list state. We will colon this to do list state. Let's copy this. Let's close this context provider element. Here, let's remove this context. Here, we forget a forward slash. So let's go to the todos.rs file. In this file, let's get the to-do list from main.rs. So we will use context hook. Let's create a variable, give it a name to-do list state option equal to use context. And we will add a type annotation, use TurboFish syntax. And type is use state handle to do list. So it will return an option. Let's use match to handle this option. Let's create a variable, give it a name to do list state equal to match to-do list state option. First is sum hold a to-do list state. Then we will return this to-do list state. Second arm, if it's null, we just call panic and print out something went wrong. Let's handle this to-do list state. Let's create a variable, give the name list. Let's create an if else statement. In this if, let's dereference this to-do list state to get the to-do list. So dereference to-do list state. Then we can get the list of this to-do list state. Then we will call len method on this list. If this list length equal to 0, then we will return HTML macro. In this HTML macro, we will return a list and give it a class list group item. This class is from Bootstrap. Let's render content in this list. No to do. Let's close this list. Then let's add a else statement. If this list length is not 0, let's dereference this to-do list state. Then we will call colon to colon list. Then we will call the list to get the list. Then we will call into iter to create an iterator from this list. Then we will map each to-do item from this iterator. We will pass a closure into this map method. And in this closure, it can capture each to-do item. So let's give it a name to-do. In this closure body, let's return HTML echo. In this HTML echo, let's add a list. Let's add a class list group item. Then we will add a deflex to make this list to be flex. Then we will add a justify content between. There will be 2 elements in this list. First element will on the left, and the second element will on the right. Let's also add a align items center, so it will center the item. Let's close this list. In this list, first let's create a link, and let's give it a concrete type is root. 2. We will click this link to the single to do. So root single to do. We will specify the ID is to do the ID. Let's use classes micro from view to create a conditional class. So if to do the complete is true, then we will return completed. Else we just return an empty string. Let's create this complete style. In style.css file, let's create a new class completed. We will add a text decoration line through. In this link, let's render to do the content. Then let's close this link. Here forward slash concrete type is also root. In this list, let's add a second element, div. Let's close this div. In this div, let's add a pair of curly brackets. In these curly brackets, we will create a if else. If to do the completed, we will render different buttons based on this completed. So if this completed is true, we will return HTML echo button type is button and class btn circle size. For now, we will not add the onClick event. Let's render the content in this button complete. Let's close this button. Else we will return HTML micro button type is button class is btn and the btn warning will render content incomplete. And let's close this button. Out of this pair of curly brackets, let's add another button. Button type, button class, btn danger. Let's render content remove. Let's close this button. Last, after this map method, here we will add a click method and add the turbofish syntax to specify the type HTML, so it will return HTML to this list. We got an error here. This link we forget angle brackets, and we also need import link and root. So use view router prelude asterisk use create root. So we get off this error. Let's go to the home component and let's copy this and let's go back to the to-dos. In this to-do component, let's remove this h1. Let's pass here and let's remove this h1. Here we don't need a full height, and we also don't need this align items center. So this will center the item in vertical, so we don't need this, and we also don't need this h100. Here let's add a margin top empty 5. In this div, let's create a URL element. Let's add a class equal to list group. Let's close this URL. We will put this list in this URL element. So let's add a pair of curly brackets list. Let's go to the web browser. Let's click this to-do to go to the to-do list. Here you can see it will list all the to-do we created. And if the to-do complete is true, then it will get a line through this and show the to-do is complete. If the to-do is not complete, it will show uncompleted. And there also a button remove. Let's create a delete to-do callback in to-do's component. Let's create a variable, give it a name delete to-do equal to, we will create a new block. And let's add a semicolon after this block. In this block, let's first clone this to-do list state. So let's create a new variable to-do list state equal to-do list dot colon. Then let's create a callback from. We will pass the closure into this from. We will add the move keyword to move the ownership to this closure. This closure will capture a value is a to-do ID. So let's create a parameter in this closure. Give the name ID, type give it a usize. In this closure body, let's create a variable. Give the name current list equal to. We will dereference this to-do list state. Then we will colon it and call the list field to get the current list. Let's create another variable. Give it a name new list equal to. We will call the current list into iter method to create an iterator from current list. Then we will call filter method to filter current list. This filter method will take a closure as argument. Let's pass a closure, and this closure can capture each to-do item in this iterator. So in this closure, let's create a variable, give it a name to-do. In this closure body, let's create a condition. So to-do.id not equal to id. This closure capture, then it will return this to-do to this iterator. If this to-do.id equal to the id from this closure, then it will remove that to-do from this iterator. Last, let's call click method to convert this iterator back to a vector. So let's add a turbofish syntax, give it a type annotation like to do item. Last, let's call to do list set to do list, and this list will be the new list. In this map method, first we need to clone this delete to do callback. So let's create a variable, give it a name delete to do equal to delete to do clone. And in this remove button, let's add on click event equal to curly brackets. In this curly brackets, we will create a closure. We will add the move keyword to move the ownership to this closure. This closure will not capture value, so we add an underscore to this closure. In this closure body, we will call delete to do emit method on this delete to do. We will pass the to do ID as argument. So let's go back to the web browser. Let's click this remove button. It will remove the to do item. Let's also remove the last to do. So there is no to do, it will show no to do. Let's create another callback to toggle the complete of the to do. So let's create a variable, give it a name toggle complete equal to, let's create a new block. After this block, let's add a semicolon. In this block, let's clone this to do list. So let's copy this from this callback. And let's create another callback. Let's copy this. This callback will also capture an ID, and we also will create a current list and a new list. In this new list, we will use the map method. So let's change this filter to map. In this map method, this closure also will capture each to do. In this closure body, add a if else block if to do .id equal to id, then we will return to do item id will be the same to do .id, content also will be the same to do content, created time also will be the same to do created item. Completed will be the opposite value, so we will add an exclamation marker to do the complete. Else, we will just return this to do. If the ID is not equal to the ID we want to toggle, so it will return the same to do to this list. Last, we will call the set method on this state to set a new list to this state. Let's back to this list. In this list map method, we also need to clone this toggle complete callback. So toggle complete callback clone. So it will clone this toggle complete callback for each to do. We will add an on-click event on this complete and uncomplete button. So on-click equal to move closure underscore toggle complete emit to do .id. Let's copy this on-click. Also add this on-click event to this uncomplete button. Let's go to the web browser. Here, let's click this uncomplete button. So you can see this to-do item will be complete. Let's click this complete, then it will become uncompleted. To make our code more cleaner, let's move this list to another component. So in this components folder, let's create a file list.rs, and let's add this list file as a module. In this mod.rs file, let's add a pub mod list. In this list, let's create a new component. -list returning type is HTML. Let's add a attribute function component. Let's give it a name list. Let's copy the code in this to do from here to the HTML. And let's move to this list component. And let's also copy this import items to this list. And in this function, last we will return HTML macro. We will put the list in this HTML macro. Let's import this callback. We import this callback from Vue. And another arrow here, use context. We will import this use context from Vue, and use state handle also import from Vue. So we get rid of the arrow. This function we should make it public. So let's add a public keyword. And in this to dos, we will import this list. Use create components list and list. In this URL element, let's add a list component. So our application works fine. Let's go to the web browser and let's remove this and let's click this button. Let's go to the single to-do.rs file. Let's complete this single to-do component. Let's create a variable. Give the name to-do list state option equal to, we will call use context to get the to-do list state. So let's add a turbofish syntax. Give the type use state handle. In this use state handle is to-do list. Let's use match expression to handle this to-do list state option. Let's create a variable, give the name to-do list state equal to match to-do list state option. First arm is sum, hold to-do list state. We just return this to-do list state in this sum, so let's return this to-do list state. Second arm is not. We simply just call panic. Let's just print out something went wrong. Then let's find the to-do item by the ID. Let's create a variable, give the name to-do item option equal to to-do list state. We will dereference this to-do list state, then colon this to-do list state. Then we will call list to get the list in this data. Then we will call into iter method to create an iterator from this list. Then we will call find method. This find method will take a closure as argument. This closure can capture each to-do, so we give it a name to-do. In this closure body, we will pass a condition is to-do.id. If this to-do ID equal to props.id, then we will return this to-do to this to-do item option. Let's create a variable, give the name to-do item view equal to. Let's create a match expression to handle this to-do item option. And the first arm is sum, contains a to-do item, so let's give it a name to-do item in this sum. Then we will return a HTML macro. In this HTML macro, let's add a div. Let's add a class. Give it a class card. Let's close this div. In this card div, let's add another div. Let's add a class. Give it a name card header. Let's close this div. In this card header, let's render content to do item the created time. Let's add a second div in this card. Class, give it a card body. Let's close this div. This card body div. Let's add an element block code. Give it a class equal to block code and margin bottle 0. Let's close this block code. In this block code, let's add a p element. In this p element, let's render to do item the content. Let's close this p tag. After this p element, let's add one element footer class. Give it a name block code footer. And let's close this footer. In this footer, let's add a site. Give it an attribute title equal to source title. Let's close this site. In this site, let's render to do item the completed. Here we forget a double quotation marker after this source title. Let's add a second arm to this match. If this option is null, then we will return HTML macro. In this HTML macro, let's create a h1 element. Let's render content to do id colon props the id not found. Let's close this h1. In HTML macro, let's render this to do item view. First, let's create a root fragment. Let's create a div. Let's add a class. Give it a container and full height. Let's close this div. In this div, let's add another div. Class equal to row. Justify content center align items center and h100. Let's close this div. In this div, let's create another div class. Let's give it a colon 8. Let's close this div. In this div, let's create a link. Let's import this link from view router. So use view router prelude asterisk and we will specify the concrete type for this link router. Let's import this router from create router to router to do's. Let's render content go back to do list. Let's close this link root. Here, we forget the forward slash. Then let's render this to do item view in curly brackets to do item view. Let's go to the web browser. Let's click this drink water. So you can see it will go to the single page. And this URL is to-do/0. This 0 is this to-do item's ID. It will render the created time and the content, and the status is false. And we can click this, go back to the to-do list. Then let's click this, take a walk. This ID is 1, and complete status is true. Let's try to visit a to-do ID like 3. Press enter. So you can see it will show us to-do ID 3 not found. We can click this, go back to the to-do list. Last, let's handle the how to add the new to-do. First, in this single to-do, let's copy this, use context and this match expression to get the to-do list state. So let's copy this, and let's go to the to-do.rs file. In this to-dos component, let's pass this here. So we will get the to-do list state. And let's import this to-do list. Then let's create a variable, give it a name input state. We will use state hook, create a state, and we will use this input state to handle the user input. So let's give it an initial value string from. We will pass an empty string value as the initial value. Then let's create a callback. Let's create a variable, give it a input callback equal to. Let's create a new block. After this block, let's add a semicolon. In this block, let's colon this input state. So let's create a new variable input state. In this block, it will shadow this input state equal to input state dot colon. Then let's create a callback from. We'll pass a closure in this from, and we will add the move keyword to move the ownership to this closure. This closure will capture a value. We give it a name E. Type will be input event. In this closure body, let's create a if let. We will use this if let to destruct the value in the sum. In the sum, let's give it a name input equal to E dot. We will call target dyn into method. Then we will add a turbofish syntax to give it a type web assist HTML text area element. Then a pair of parentheses. Then we will set the input value to this input state. So input state.set. We will call input.value method on this input to get the input value. Let's create add a new to do callback. Let's create a variable, give it a name add a new to do callback equal to. Let's create a new block. And let's add a semicolon after this block. In this block, let's colon the input state and also to-do list state. So let's create a variable, give it a name input state equal to input state dot colon let to-do list state equal to to-do list state dot colon. Then let's create a callback from. We pass a closure. We add the move keyword to move the ownership to the closure. This closure will not capture any value, so we add an underscore between these vertical bars. In this closure body, first let's get the current to-do list. Let's create a mutable variable, give it a name current to-do list equal to, we will dereference this to-do list state. Then we will call clone method to clone it. Then we will call list to get the list. Let's create a variable, give it a name new to-do item. So we will create a new to-do item, and after its curly brackets, let's add a semicolon. In its curly brackets, first field ID, we will create a if else expression. If current to-do list the length equal to 0, then we will return ID 0. So it means this new to-do item will be the first to-do item in this list, so we give it ID 0. Else, we will get the ID of the last item of this current to-do list, then +1. So current to-do list square brackets current to-do list the length to get the length. Then we will -1 to get the index number of the last item of this list. Then the ID to get the ID field value and +1. Second field is content. Content, we will get the content from this input state. So we need to dereference this input state, then clone it to get its value. Third field is completed, so we give it a value false. Created at create time, we will call get current time function to get the current time when this to-do list created. Then let's push this new to-do to this current to-do list. So current to-do list the push this new to-do item. Then we will call to-do list the state set to set this current to-do list to this to-do list state. So we will set this to-do list field will be the current to-do list. Last, we will set this input state to an empty string. So input state set string from let's go to the HTML macro, and in this div colon 8, and before this URL element, let's add a text area. So first, let's add a div. Let's give it a class margin bottle 3. Let's close this div. In this div, let's create a text area element. Class equal to form control. Let's give it an ID. Example form control text area 1. Let's add another attribute row. Give it a value 3. Value equal to curly brackets. This value will set an initial value of this text area. So we will give it an initial value from this input state. So let's dereference this input state, then call the colon to clone the value. Then we will add an input event equal to, we will pass the input callback on this input event. Last, let's close this text area. Then let's add a button type, give it a button class, give it a btn primary, Let's add an onClick event. We will pass this add a new to-do callback to this onClick event. So add a new to-do callback. Then we will add a disabled attribute equal to. We will get the value from this input state. So let's dereference this input state. Then we will colon it. Then we will trim it. If that equal to empty, then this button will be disabled. Let's render content add. Then let's close this button. Let's go to the web browser. You can see it will have a text area and have a button. If there is no content in this text area, we can't click this button add. If we type empty space, we can't click this add button because we disabled this button. Let's type take a nap. You can see we can click this add button. So let's click this add button. You can see it will add the new to-do take a nap to our to-do list. We can go to the single page to see the details of this to-do. Then let's go back. We can click this button to complete or uncomplete this to-do list. We can remove this. We can remove all the to-do items. Then we can add a new to-do, like do homework. Then we can click this add button. It will add a new to-do. Let's make some modify to get rid of the underline of the to-do item. So in style.css, we will make the link a text decoration. Now, let's go back to the web browser. Let's refresh. So you can see there is no underline of the link. Let's go to the home page and let's go to the to-do app. Let's go to the single to-do app. Let's go back. Let's click this button. Let's remove button. Let's remove this. Let's add a new to-do. Do homework. Then let's add this new to-do to the to-do list. Let's click this button and click this button again. Let's remove this to-do. We just finished our to-do list application. Hope to see you next time.